Listen, this is a great draw, but it isn't the draw that everyone wanted, and I'll tell you why. Welcome back to the Laurence McKenna channel. It's good to have you guys. I don't know why I bounced into frame there. And in fact, I think it's probably just because the Champions League draw, whatever the outcome, gets me ridiculously excited. I always love just the legends, the whole state of the occasion, the whole pomp and circumstance of what is going on in the Champions League. And whilst this is not necessarily the best Champions League draw in the later rounds, in this round, this is exciting. And that gets me excited. I hope it also gets you excited. If it does, hit the subscribe button down there and we can keep chatting about this. The first of all the teams drawn out was a team that everyone was probably looking to avoid in this, which is Real Madrid, current champions, and of course, shepherded by Carlo Ancelotti, because that's what I feel like it is. You watch Real Madrid and there are times where you're just thinking, how are these guys doing this? Like, how is this working in such a effective way when Carlo seems so hands-off, when the team seems so self-sufficient, and even when something bad happens or something bad even looms, they just don't look like they react to it. And so the terminator of the Champions League, in a sense, is Real Madrid this season. And the lucky team to come up against them is Chelsea, another English side, but a side with really good recent history. Now, obviously, Madrid ran past Liverpool really easily, thanks to the first leg at Anfield. And Chelsea, well, they narrowly got past Dortmund, but it was a fairly convincing second leg performance. And you've got to admit, the Graham Potter era is kind of beginning to roll a little bit now, especially if you put him up against a team that he can prove himself against. A lot of the time, we remember that Brighton and Potter were very good at playing up to the bigger teams. They were a bit of a banana skin in the Premier League. They played systems that just frustrated the opposition, but also outplayed the opposition. And if you can keep a game close, not make the same mistakes as, say, a Liverpool or someone like that did in letting Madrid just get away with the tie, then surely you're in great shape, right? I'm sure there are plenty of other people who are saying things like, this Chelsea team just don't have the confidence, all this kind of... Remember Frank Lampard a couple of years ago? Actually, when Chelsea did go to the final, it wasn't a Lampard result, I don't think, but remember a couple of years ago when this Chelsea team were underestimated, when they were in a transitional period, when people basically said, oh, the season's over for these guys, drawn against Real Madrid, things aren't looking so good. What happened after that? Now, of course, this is a very different manager, very different times, but is it all that different? I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested to know what Chelsea fans think in the comments below. I'm not with all the doom mongers around the whole Potter thing. And frankly, I think you have to back your manager if you're playing Real Madrid. It's almost like you don't have any other option when playing Real Madrid. There isn't a sort of, oh yeah, like maybe if we sort of play a little bit well. It's like, no, you just go through or not. It's knockout football. Just back your guys. And as Chelsea are sort of moving into the season and people like Kovacic talking in a leadership kind of positive leadership kind of way, why not hope? Of course, the only reason why you wouldn't hope is because Real Madrid have this uncanny power in recent years to do crazy things. And of course, they absolutely blew past Liverpool very easily. The worry would be that the centre-backs of Chelsea just get completely exploited, the midfield get overrun. But then there are just like little things that you can sort of grasp onto. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got two of your good fullbacks coming back. Would a Reece James or someone like that enjoy like a Vinicius Jr. going up against him? Would you like to see Enzo Fernandez sort of trying to run that midfield? I know Chelsea fans, you guys kind of claim that he, owned Jude Bellingham. Well, Jude Bellingham is one of Real Madrid's biggest targets. And there is another couple of young players actually coming up against Enzo in the next game. I'll be interested to know what you guys think about that one. Is it a good matchup? The only issue is, and I kind of think this is weird because I actually think Real Madrid had a really good matchup against Liverpool. They sort of knew what Liverpool were trying to achieve. They knew they could sit a little bit deeper. They're not particularly progressive with their fullbacks, so it was a good matchup for them because Liverpool's fullbacks would progress and Real Madrid were just basically just waiting for them. Can Chelsea exploit them somehow? Not in playing possum, but in not being the side that is quite as good as Real Madrid is. Be interested to know what you guys think. The second tie, if you like, because I'm going to leave Man City for a little while, is Inter versus Benfica. Now, Inter obviously got through against Porto 1-0, fairly close game. Benfica, quite differently, came through against Club Brugge. Benfica are one of those sides. Like, Benfica this season are him. These guys are absolutely owning the league back in Portugal, and in the Champions League, they just seem to be overrunning people. They've got a number of these kind of Portuguese league kind of players where you're just like, oh, you're doing that thing that Portuguese teams do, where you're good and then we pick you guys off. which we've already started doing with Enzo Fernandez, right? And I mean, it's not only that, it isn't just the individuals within that. The system that they're playing within is also a really exciting system. And it's one which kind of enables the players to do the best, that like do their best within those areas. Like Enzo, I think, was a big difference maker within that side when I was watching them in the Champions League. And I can't remember the name of the guy they replaced him with, but he's not doing an impression of Enzo, but he's kind of doing like the best Enzo he can do. So clearly there is a good coach at this club. Clearly they're on the up. And I mean, at the same time, they've won a ridiculous amount of games recently. They've had a really good run in the Champions League. And as hard as Inter is to go to, you kind of only got to really put Benfica going through this one. They're just so powerful, and struggling through against Porto, who are not as strong as Benfica. Inter have sort of gotten to this point through not fortune, but a draw, basically, the right draw for them. And here we are. I think they're going to get killed by Benfica, although they might sit a little bit deeper. And Serie A is quite strong this season, so let's see. I didn't predict the Real Madrid Chelsea one. I'm going to go Real Madrid. I'm just sorry. I'm sorry. I am. Man City versus Bayern Munich. Good God. One of the Pep derbies. Man City get through by absolutely thrashing Leipzig, but then Bayern Munich have gotten through by just, sit down there, PSG. PSG didn't really put up any fight, and let's be honest, Leipzig didn't put up the fight that you would want them to. It's kind of insane, really, that, but PSG would just not at the races. So I don't know if we got the best measurement of Munich, but we see that when they come up against opposition, they're great at quashing them. They're really good game managers, not in a similar way to Real Madrid, but in that similar vein, in the sense that they are a very regal sort of Champions League team. And let's be honest about this, Man City have a bit of a complex when it comes to the Champions League. If ever there was a season for them to win it, it would be this one. They're second in the league right now. Things aren't going so well over there. Pep's in a transitional season. He allowed Cancelo to go to Bayern Munich. There are just a few narratives in there where you think, you know what, Pep can probably make it through here. But at the same time, don't overthink this. Don't do the things that you normally do. And just sort of try and sail through there. It's bizarre to say, but I've got to give City the edge in this one. I know that the people are going to say, oh, it's because you're in England and you give... It's Pep Guardiola, it's Man City, it's Erling Haaland against that back line. It's the fact that City probably can deal with what it is that Munich have, way better than what PSG have had in the past. I feel that City are going to be on a bit of a roll by the time that they play. They'll play a couple of tricky sides. Bayern, there's a really close race for them at the top of Bundesliga, but I've just got this weird feeling about City this season. I didn't have it before, but I'm sort of getting it now. The Leipzig game was way too easy, and the PSG game was way too easy. Poor draw. Let's see what happens. I got City going through that one. And then, and by the way, I will give you what would be my ideal draw before as well, because I think that would have set things up slightly differently, and I'll tell you why this wasn't the best possible draw in the Champions League in just a second. AC Milan versus Napoli, Serie A derby. Now, obviously, we would have loved to see AC Milan versus Inter Milan, and maybe Napoli versus Man City. I'll talk about that in a second. AC Milan versus Napoli is a great tie. It is the historically huge power of AC Milan versus the historically, but further history, huge power of Napoli. And Napoli this season are just insatiable. They are the chef's kiss of the Champions League. They are the ones that people love to watch. They are the champions elect, if you like, because people would elect them if they got the opportunity. And really, they're sort of like the team of the people this season in the Champions League. They absolutely thrashed Liverpool. I went there and saw it. But I've got to admit, when you put a little bit of pressure on them, there was an element of, oh, wait a minute, what are we doing here? We're meant to be the dominant side. So I wouldn't say these guys are unbeatable, if that makes sense. I feel like there is a beatable nature to Napoli. I just feel like they are a team in a really great moment, as they would say in Europe. And I'm kind of interested to see what they do this season. Of course, Inter have beat Napoli this season. Liverpool have actually beat Napoli this season, despite the thrashing that they got in Naples. And I think it's like a run of 5 games where they play Inter Milan 3 times. Kind of like your class. Do you remember when Liverpool were playing Chelsea back in the day? Do you remember when Liverpool played Man City? It seemed like every week in the second half of the season. This is similar for AC Milan versus Napoli. And of course, it sets up perfectly because they've got the league game first. Would have kind of been fascinating to see what they would have done if they'd gone Champions League game, Champions League game. because it would have set the league game up quite nicely. But here we are. Milan, of course, had swapped Inter out of their tie because you can't have obviously more than one home team in San Siro at the same time, or Giuseppe Meazza in San Siro at the same time. So that's pretty exciting. And I've got to admit, like, I've got a soft spot for Napoli. I visited Naples this season. I'm trying to go back again. The place is just amazing. Like, if you're a Liverpool fan, you probably also love Napoli. You know, there's a city equivalency between the two places. And I kind of want them to go through, because I feel like if they did go through, it sets up a tie between, and this is where I'm sort of saying it's exciting, but it's like one side of the draw is like the underdogs, but the up and coming underdogs. So you got AC versus Napoli, Inter versus Benfica, and then on the other side you got Real Madrid versus Chelsea, Munich versus City. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's the favourites versus the guys like Napoli top of the league, Benfica top of their league, Real Madrid not top of their league, City not top of their league, Chelsea in poor form. Like, there's the historic powers versus these. This is what the Champions League is all about. But I just wish there was a bit more of a mix. I put my ideal draw up on the screen now. It's not a bad draw. Like, I would have liked to see a Milan derby. I kind of was happy with the City Munich one. I think I would have liked to see Real Madrid versus Naples, and I would have liked to see Chelsea versus Benfica. So, you know, we didn't get it, but we could have got it. It is what it is. Anyway, it leads to basically, I think, a Real Madrid versus Napoli or Real Madrid Benfica final, which is kind of a classic from back in the day, if you like. It's not like it could be a modern classic. Don't get me wrong, and especially if it's Napoli who go through. But there's something that I'm sort of feeling like this is exciting now. Do you know what I mean? And here's the thing, if City go through and they end up playing Real Madrid in the semi-final, which is perfectly likely, you could end up with like a Pep Guardiola versus Napoli, and the whole of Europe would be rooting against City at this point, and the whole of Europe would be rooting against Real Madrid. If Napoli go through or Benfica go through, they instantly become the people's champion. These guys are the rock. If you smell what Napoli is cooking, I can't do the thing in the same way, but you sort of get my point. Anyway, it's an exciting draw. I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Let me know, and I will see you guys in the next video. These games come thick and fast from here on out. Stick around with the Lozcast chat, Laurence McKenna channel, not Lozcast, Laurence McKenna channel just down here, and I look forward to covering the ties with you. Thinking maybe some live streams. What do you think? I'm just saying. It's not. Just saying. It's an option. What? Okay, fine. All right. Bye.